Hey guys, you're listening to Metal Matters, a weekly Gimme Radio podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hill. If you like metal, punk, hardcore, or anything extreme, you've come to the right place. So subscribe and never miss out. If you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you know Randy Larsen as one of the co-hosts for the Classic Records episodes. Not only is Randy one of my oldest friends, but he's also the founding member of Cable, a band that has been performing and putting out records since 1994. That's a long time. They've worked with a number of solid independent labels such as Hydrahead, Doghouse, The End, and Translation Loss. Randy and I spoke about the ups and downs of the band over the last 25 plus years. And of course we got around to talking about their brand new record, their first record in 10 years, Take the Stairs to Hell, out on Translation Loss Records, July 26th in the year of our Lord, 2019. When was the last time Cable put out a record?
2009 was the last studio album we put out.
So we're looking at a 10-year hiatus period.
Yeah, only 10 years.
Only 10?
Not bad, right?
So we have a new Cable record coming out. And so what's the details, man? Like, what's the name of the album? When's the release date? You know, what's the whole background behind it? Where do you record it? Like all that good stuff.
Well, it's coming out on July 26th on Translation Loss Records. It's called Take the Stairs to Hell. We recorded it over a bunch of different sessions in the winter, and mainly January and February. And up in Boston with Alex Garcia Rivera, his studio up there called Mystic Valley. You joined us for a day.
Yeah, that was great, man. I had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah,
there's been a bunch of different guys on the record too.
Yeah, there's we don't normally have a lot of guests on our records in the past, but this time we do. You?
Well, before we get into that though, there's the lineup on the album, because like Cable has been through several different iterations. I mean, when did you guys started in the 90s? You have like almost 20 years of over 20 years of history as a band.
Yeah, it's been about 25 years.
Yeah.
I think the first time we rehearsed was April of 1994.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a lot of starts and stops and detours along the way. Break up, get back together, kick this guy out, get this guy. A lot of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyone who knows the history of the band even a little bit knows that.
So the core of the band, who's actually on the records, like you were saying, I came out and did some vocals, and there's been a bunch of other people contributing to the record.
Right.
But who was the core of the band that's on the recording?
So the Cable 2019 moving forward is me on bass and vocals, Bernie Romanowski on guitar, who's been in the band since 1996. Peter Ferris on vocals, Chris Viskelta on guitar, and Alex Garcia Rivera is a new drummer. This is the first time he's played with us.
Now, Alex has been in like a ton of bands.
Yeah, I've known Alex for a long, long time, as I know you have too. He's been in a ton of bands. I mean, so many bands. Currently, he's in American Nightmare, Blood Horse. He does like a solo project called Chrome Over Brass, plus the studio, Mystic Valley. He runs that. But I've known him. I met Alex in maybe the early 90s, 91, 92, when he used to play in an old hardcore band called Kingpin from Boston.
Yeah.
And we kind of remained friends, we drift in and out, see each other at a show, reconnect or whatever. So I hooked up with him a couple of years ago when we remastered and remixed the Never Trust a Gemini album. He has a fully analog studio, one of the only functioning ones left. We recorded that record on 2-inch tape, so he was the first guy I thought of to go do the remix of the record. And that's how we kind of reconnected and started this little journey into him being in Cable.
Yeah, I've known Alex for a long time. We were roommates for a while. We played in a band for a minute. And, he was in Shelter and Better Than 1,000, Baby Gopal, like a million bands.
A million bands. Yeah, Piebald maybe for a minute.
Yeah, Piebald towards the end. He was also, I think, the live drummer for Cold Cave.
He does that on occasion. I think he still does that on occasion. Yeah.
So he gets out there for sure, and he's a powerful drummer too.
Oh yeah, man. I can't say enough good things about Alex. I'll just say we're very happy with our choice. Very happy.
So how was the writing? Was it something that you've been working on and off for the last several years, or did you guys just get together and just like woodshed some songs, or like how'd that all happen?
The lineup of the band that recorded the record never rehearsed together, not one time.
Okay.
We did have a couple full band rehearsals with a different drummer in the late summer, early fall. That didn't work out. And then we had already booked the studio time, so we kind of didn't have a drummer for a little while. It was like 0 hour, and Alex agreed to do it. But the songs we never practiced with this lineup that made the record. I went up to the studio. Me and Alex rehearsed the songs that I had the skeletons for. We tracked the bass and drums that way, and everything else was done as overdubs. We did the bass and drums live. But the songs on the record, some of them have been around. I wrote every song on the record except for the intro and the outro. Normally, Bernie contributes with a couple songs. I usually write the bulk of the songs for every Cable record, but the way this just unfolded was I wrote everything, and those guys, they wrote their own guitar parts and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the basic skeletons of the songs, I wrote almost all of that. So it was very different the way we usually rehearse for months and months and months as a full band, then go in and make a record. This is the first time Cable has ever made a record like this.
Now I have to ask the question. Anyone who knows Cable, is probably waiting for me to ask this question. And since he is a friend of mine as well, and someone I've known is equally as long as you have, what happened to Vic?
Well, that's a loaded question, Mike.
I don't want to start any trouble, but
the trouble's already been started. That's unavoidable at this point. I'm gonna take the high road here, and I'm gonna answer the question. I kicked him out of the band back in the summer. Didn't go well. There was a lot of drama that unfolded via social media, which I don't really fucking bother with that shit. I'm on social media. I don't know. I'm a grown man. I don't fight with other people over social media. So I never responded to any of it in a public forum. This is the first time I've even discussed this outside of, with my wife or my friends or whatever, friends of the band, whatever. There's been me and him started the band together. There's no doubt about that. Over the years, our relationship took many twists and turns, and our friendship started to disintegrate. And I didn't think the band could continue on with him playing drums on a personal level and on a musical level. And all I'll say is this. 4 of the 5 people that made our last studio album, The Failed Convict, made this new album. So people that don't know what's going on inside, on social media, people like to think they know everything. Because someone puts up a post, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the absolute truth. That's one person's opinion. 4 of the 5 people that made the last album made this one together. I didn't make this decision. I'm the one who did it. I'm the one who removed him from the band. Everyone agreed to do this. So 4 of the 5 people that made the last record made this record when we got a new drummer. So this was not a single decision that I made. The other guys in the band, their opinions matter to me, and we talk about everything as a band. So yeah, there's bad blood, and I don't appreciate people going online and talking shit. I think that's very childish. I've tried, I tried to reach out after the fact to try to get some resolution to this, but it was not met with open arms, to say the least. So, I don't know what else to say about it, really, besides just being completely negative and talking a bunch of shit, which I'm just going to choose not to do.
Yeah. So do you think that as time goes by that the two of you will reconcile any of this? Because I'd like to see that personally, but, it's something only you have the answer to.
Right now, no, I don't see that happening. But, stranger things have happened. I'm here. If the phone rang, I would answer it. I've tried on numerous occasions to reach out. Twice. I shouldn't say numerous occasions. I've tried twice to reach out and have a conversation as adults about this. And one time it was met with a nasty email as a response, and the second time no one answered the phone. So I have tried. But then after those attempts, things just get nastier and nastier, and I'm not going to chase someone around to be my friend or whatever. So I've just chose to move down the road.
Well, I hope that at some point you guys could straighten this out because, like I said, I've been a fan of cable. I've been friends with you guys for, over 20 years at this point, and I hate to see things turn out this way. And, maybe as time goes by, things will change. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah, man. Hey, they can. Things can always change, I guess. Right now the nerves are still a little raw about this whole situation. So I just don't have time for all this other bullshit that goes along with it, man. I just want to make a record. You know?
So now that I asked that question, let's talk about the actual record then, because we had the core of the band, and then you had a bunch of guests on there.
Yes,
myself included. Yes. So who else is on the album?
So for guests on the album, you obviously did some vocals on 2 different tracks, I believe. Graham Brooks plays guitar in a band called Barishi from Vermont. He did a guitar solo on one of the songs. And then the outro, a song called Come Home, was done by Jeff Cackside with some help from Aaron Harris. Jeff was an original member of Cable and a lifelong friend of mine, big supporter of the band. He did some production work on our Gutter Queen album in '98. He's one of my closest friends, so it's weird calling him a guest, but he was a guest. So him and Aaron Harris both played in the band ISIS, as most people know. Good friend of mine also. They composed a track called Come Home, which is the outro. So I guess Jeff Cackside, Aaron Harris, Michael Hill here, and Graham Brooks. Those were the guests on the album.
And that also, you're forgetting another person.
I probably am.
Hey, Christian.
Oh, shit.
The guy who,
No, I wasn't forgetting him.
Because I was on my trunk going, okay, we got Graham. What about Christian? Okay.
Maybe I did need notes for my own episode. Not intentionally did I forget him. Putting this, Christian McKenna, who also is one of the co-owners of Translation Lost. He's been putting out Cable albums for a long time, putting out this one. He is also the lead singer for another band I do called Empty Flowers, and a good friend of mine. So I apologize, Christian, for forgetting you. But he does vocals on a song as well.
There's a lot of different vocals going on.
I know.
Which is pretty cool, really. And I was there for only one day, and I remember I showed up right when Graham did his amazing guitar solo.
Yeah, which left everyone just on the
then he just left afterwards. He's like, all right, cool, later, guys. Boom, took off. And Pete killed it on some vocals. Christian did some, awesome vocals on the record too, man. So it was pretty cool.
It was really great, man, because I think all 4 of those vocalists bring something vastly different to the table. I'll just say it. I don't give a shit. Like Pete, I was trying to do a part and I couldn't do it, and Pete just walked in there. This fucking guy's been on the shelf for 8 years. He hasn't sang at all. He just walked in there and nailed his part, the part I couldn't do. So it was valuable to have weapons like you, Pete, and Christian,
Yeah.
there that day. And I think we didn't overdo it. Because there's been, some people have told me over the years, there's too many vocals on Cable albums and Cable songs. There's not enough, they don't breathe enough at times. But I think even though we had 4 different singers there, I still think it's not overdone with vocals. I think it works.
Yeah.
You know?
Did Bernie do any vocals?
He did not.
Oh, interesting. 'Cause
Yeah.
he normally he does, right? Yeah.
A lot of times he has his own like song,
Yeah.
sort of. This time this album was made very differently for a Cable album. So no, he didn't sing at all on the record this time.
How many tracks are on the album? Is it like a long album or a short
No,
record?
it's short. It's like 32 minutes. I want to say it's 8 tracks.
Okay.
Christ, I should know this, huh?
Yeah, you know.
Maybe it's
Yeah,
9.
you should.
Maybe it's 9 tracks. It is short though, and that was intentional.
Okay.
We had other material. I had other material written. I want to make a very concise, short record with like bookended with the intro and the outro. The intro is very short as well. The outro is a little bit longer, but I just wanted it to be like bangers, one right after the other. I felt like our last studio album, The Failed Convict, I think it was like 50 minutes or something, which I guess is pretty standard.
Well, these days it is, but that 32-minute program length that you just mentioned. I mean, Rain and Blood was less than 30 minutes, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So you're going in this kind of retro, like, you know, like side A, side B kind of vibe, I guess.
Well, there's also, you know, I feel like people's attention spans aren't what they used to be in a lot of ways. With, you know, the age of like iPods and streaming services and all, it's like you tend to skip around. I do. I'm guilty of it too, you know? So I just want to make something short and concise. You know, maybe next time will be a little more adventurous if there is a next time. But I just want to make a stripped down rock album.
Yeah.
You know, no shit in the middle. I just wanted it to be concise.
Cable started out very different than the way it is now. You know, sonically, like the songs, like the music itself. Like in the beginning, you had a very different thing going on than you guys do right now.
Yeah.
So what, you know, how is that whole change, that whole evolution happened? Like how was that?
Just kind of growing up. You know, we were all pretty young. I was older than those guys when we started the band, but we were all still like pretty involved in the same scene. You know, it's the early '90s hardcore punk scene, all into that kind of stuff. And then I started to kind of grow pull away from that scene because it just started to get real like violent and real ignorant and real stupid to me. It just wasn't into it. And simultaneously started to find bands like the Melvins, Jesus Lizard, Neurosis, Buzz Oven, I Hate God, Laughing Hyenas, stuff like that. So I kind of started to gravitate towards that stuff. Those guys were also, you know, doing the same thing kind of. So the sound of the band changed, and when we started playing, like we couldn't really play. I mean, you know, shit, we still can't really play, but the musicianship was pretty, you know, minimal.
Minimal, yeah.
But we didn't want to do like the youth crew hardcore thing. We didn't want to do like the chugga chugga thing. We want to try, and everyone wants to try this, I guess, to try to do something different.
Well, you guys also geographically, the band was located in Connecticut. And which is like kind of like it could be good or also it could be bad place to be located in.
It's usually bad
because you're between New York City and Boston, which have like two, you know, vibrant sort of hardcore,
right,
you know, scenes, punk scenes, that kind of thing. So how did the location of Connecticut? Because even though Connecticut is kind of a corridor between New England and New York City, there were bright spots within the state that lent itself. That sort of supported the band a little bit, right? Yeah,
there were mainly in the avenue of venues.
Yeah,
there was, and I always get in trouble for saying this shit, but I don't care. Like to me, Connecticut never has had a wealth of great bands, at least bands that I dig. You know, there's tons of bands from Connecticut, but for some reason, the venues in Connecticut were always there and always very supportive of touring bands and local bands. I mean, the Anthrax Club. We never, that was before cable formed, but I spent a lot of my youth there. And then there was a place in New Haven called the Tune In, which did a lot of, hardcore shows, metal shows. And then up in Northeast Connecticut, there was a venue called Studio 158, which was really like the club that allowed us to play basically whenever we wanted. Me and Vic both worked there, both book shows there. So we played there a lot, and that's how we kind of became a band and got like a small fan base from playing there. But I always call Connecticut the truck stop of the North because like people just pass through, going from Boston to New York. Even though it's right between Boston and New York, there's this sense of isolation here. We're less than 2 hours from New York, less than 2 hours from Boston. But in Eastern Connecticut, where we were from too, it's even more so. Like Southern Connecticut is like New Haven and stuff. And there's always been a little bit of a scene. I mean, I live out in the woods, so in a lot of ways we're kind of stuck with each other in the beginning.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, also there was one of our favorite record stores around that time too was Trash American Style.
Absolutely. And yes, we used to go there as a band. We would like pile in the car after practice and go there. Very influential place for me as well, man. Yeah, without a doubt.
Unfortunately, the brick and mortar location of Trash American Style is no more. However, Malcolm, the owner and curator of that store, is still out and about doing, he's out there almost every weekend selling records.
Yeah.
And, if you're anywhere in the Northeast and you go to record fairs, you'll see this guy.
He's everywhere.
And
man.
he kind of, even though he's not a native of Connecticut, he's from Florida originally.
Yes.
He really, when I think of Connecticut and I think of independent music and punk and hardcore, I can't help but think about Malcolm as being like an integral, member of the scene, like someone who kind of like was really, for me at least, I mean, I didn't grow up in Connecticut, but I grew up on the border, was of New York, Connecticut border, was someone who was like this kind of bolster, like a spot, like Trash American Style was like a location for people to go to and find out about music, so it was, I'd like to think that somehow he contributed to independent music in Connecticut, you know what I mean?
Oh, without a doubt, man. You can't really mention independent music, underground music in Connecticut without mentioning Malcolm or Trash. And when I was going through this change of like kind of getting away from your standard punk and hardcore, getting more into like, metal and noise rock and stuff like that, Malcolm would always recommend things to me. Oh, you like this? Check this out, and like,
yeah.
He would be like proud of me when I would come up to the counter with like a Tad CD or something that wasn't on Revelation, know? He would like, I would go there so much, he'd kind of see the growth in listening, like, oh, you only used to listen to hardcore. Now you're listening to like, this and this. So yeah, Malcolm was a huge part of my musical, taste and stuff growing up for sure.
Yeah, that shop was cool because I remember you would go in there and he would have like, all the Youth of Today and Gorilla Biscuits and all those 7-inches up behind the counter. But then you could find like, like His Hero's Gone. You could find Gun Club records. You can find Opal records, everything on SST.
Yes.
His like bootleg Manson cassette label. G.G. Allen. I remember there was a Rollins Band End of Silence rug.
I remember that.
Yeah, like hanging up on the wall. And then there's all this like just miscellaneous just stuff he had, like books and videos and bootlegs, and it was the kind of shop that just doesn't exist anymore in the 21st century,
It wasn't just a record shop. It was like a cultural experience. It was like, there was you always like rummage through shit and find some weird thing or some weird zine or some weird book or like had used clothes in there.
Yep.
Like it always had that smell.
Yeah,
that
totally.
Incense.
Yep, incense. Yep.
Yeah, man. It was a really unique place. It wasn't just like a record shop. It was, but it was so much more than that.
So when did Pete actually come into the fold in the band?
2002. I could be off by a year or so there, but yeah, Pete is an interesting guy.
How'd you meet Pete? I remember him from another band, actually.
Yeah, Pete, he used to sing for a band called the Farewell Order from New Haven. He was going to school at Yale, living up here. I think he finished school by that point and was singing in this band. And they opened for Cable at a show, I think at the L&G Club, which used to be in New London. And they were great. And he just caught my attention for some reason. I really liked what he was doing vocally. And then I talked to him at the show for a minute or whatever. And then we ran into each other a few more times. I think like maybe a Melvin show or something. And we just started talking. The Farewell Order didn't sound anything like Cable. They're more like spastic, kind of early Dillinger, Burp by the Sun type stuff like that. But we just got to talking, and we ended up liking a lot of the same kind of stuff that influenced Cable. Big Neurosis fan, Buzz Oven fan, stuff like that. So I had been kicking around the idea of adding another vocalist to the band, and we just figured we'd give it a shot. We were about to start writing a new album, so he gave me a demo that he made with it was one of the guitar players in the Farewell Order, but I forgot what it was called. I think it was just like a joke name or something. They didn't really have a name, but they recorded 2 songs, and he was like singing. He wasn't, because he was just screaming the Farewell Order, like insane. And I was like, "Shit, man, you can actually kind of sing." And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I've never done it." I'm like, "Well, this shit sounds cool." So he just started rehearsing with us when we started doing Never Trust the Gemini album, and he ended up singing on the record just as much as I did. And then we went and recorded that record with him, and he's been on every Cable record in some form since. Because
I remember when I came, you guys played at CB's, and I remember coming down to the show, and I'm like, "Who the fuck is this guy up there?" You know what I mean? and you're like, "Oh, this is Pete." And I'm like, "Oh, well, so now you got a guy singing now?" I was thinking, I thought it kind of tripped me out at first, but then I was like, "Man, this dude is actually really, really good."
Yeah, he is, dude. I can't stress enough how good he's a writer. Yeah. He's a published writer.
Yeah, totally. I read one of his books at least.
Yeah, and he's a very smart guy, and his lyrics are awesome.
So he wrote his own lyrics to the songs that he sang?
He always writes his own lyrics.
All right, cool.
Yeah, yep, always. Yeah, actually, pretty much that's one thing. Even the songs Bernie sings, Bernie writes his own lyrics. I write my own, of course. But yeah, he always writes his own lyrics. He always does his own phrasing and all that stuff. We collaborate a little bit, but like I just send him shit and he shows up. He
comes up with it.
Yeah, he's fucking, he ended up moving back to Georgia.
Right.
After like a year or two after he joined the band, which sucked because it created a different dynamic. He just couldn't be there.
Yeah.
So he'd fly up for recording, sing on a song, maybe do backups on another song. But I mean, my master plan was to make him the guy. I wanted him to be the singer. Maybe I would just do backups because Bernie just kind of wanted to get away from singing for years. But with the distance thing, it's kind of hard to do that and play shows and stuff like
definitely.
That. So, but he's definitely a member of the band, for sure.
Tim, right? The guitar player.
Chris.
Was Chris in the band at that show at CB's that I came to? I know that's a random question, but like at that point, were you guys at the 2 guitar lineup or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris was in the band. Bernie was not in the band.
Okay.
And this guy, Aaron Lewis, not the guy from Stained, unfortunately, was in the band. So yeah, we're 2 guitar. We recorded a record with Bernie. Bernie left immediately after we recorded the record, and then we had to replace him. That's when Chris came aboard. Aaron was already in the band. So that show at CB's was me, Vic, Pete.
And no Bernie.
No Bernie.
Right.
Aaron on guitar and Chris on guitar.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a revolving
lot,
door.
man.
Yeah.
It's life's rich tapestry.
Yeah,
shall
sure.
we say?
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
We recorded. Yeah, the record we recorded was called "Pigs Never Fly," which is definitely my least favorite Cable record we've ever done. It was recorded to not be an album. It was supposed to be a demo that we were gonna do like press like 50 CDRs and sell at shows for like $5 and then really go record the album. It's somehow, in our infinite wisdom, we thought it'd be a good idea to release that as an album, and I can't fucking stand it. I can't stand it.
So you were mentioning that in the past, all of the vocalists have done their own lyric writing, but on this last record, you wrote all the songs and you wrote all the lyrics.
No.
Okay.
The song "Rats on Fire," I wrote all the music. Pete wrote all the lyrics.
Oh, okay.
And did all the vocals.
Okay.
That's the way we've kind of approached it since he's moved back to Georgia. Is there's always a Pete song where we write the music, send him a demo, he comes up with all his own lyrics, and just knocks it out. Yeah, so I did not write the lyrics. And I mean, I wrote most of the other lyrics, but even the stuff you sang on, I sent you like ideas and you kind of did your thing with them. I mean, they're pretty true to form.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much, I think I changed like a one word.
Yeah.
And the phrasing might have been a little different, you know?
Right.
But I mean, I pretty much did what you told me to do.
Yeah.
I took direction from you. Yeah. So what is your relationship now with singing? Because you mentioned earlier that you wanted Pete to be the guy and you to just do backups, but you still, you're primarily the singer of the band. So how does that sit with you these days?
Well, that's the problem, is I am primarily the singer of the band. I mean, it's not, I don't mean it like that. It's not a problem, but I always like the freedom to play my instrument without being tied to vocals. I've been doing this shit for a long time. I've never taken vocal lessons, and my voice is pretty shredded, man. Like, we're not a band that practices every week. We're not a band that practices at all lately. Unless we have something going on, we don't really rehearse. So I don't really my vocals go out of shape. So it's just a struggle I have. I should do more in my own time. I should, do exercises and stuff like that. I don't, 'cause I'm lazy. I was singing for another band for the last few years, which is not around anymore. I was just singing for a band called Slow Death. And that was awesome because I felt like my vocals were in shape.
Yeah.
So it just becomes a struggle. It takes me a while. Once we start playing and practicing, it takes me a while to get to where I want to be, where I feel like my voice is strong. But the bottom line is, man, I can't fucking sing. I can't sing.
Yeah, but
I can do what I do.
That doesn't stop anyone ever.
I know.
That
certainly hasn't stopped me. But there's things that I want to hear in Cable songs. There's things that I write that I want to hear that I can't do. And it's the fucking truth, man. I'm not embarrassed to say it. Like, Pete can do shit that I can't do. And I hear that in our songs. I mean, you can do shit that I can't do. And I hear that in our songs. And, I'm kind of hogtied sometimes. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm settling for my range of what I can do. I can do two things, man. I can do like a low register type thing that borders on talking. Mm-hmm. And I can kind of like scream.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my limitation. So I've always wanted to push the band. I just want to, like anybody, man. I want to progress. I want to push the band. I have ideas in my head that I can't convey, and it sucks. So that's why I wanted to when I realized Pete could sing, I'm like, man, I want to bring this guy aboard. I never want to stop singing completely for Cable. I think that'd be maybe too weird.
Yeah, since you've been involved in that capacity from the whole time with the band. Yeah. Yeah.
But I got to be honest, man. I don't love singing. I don't. I don't. It's weird. It's a weird thing. As long as Cable makes records, I'll sing on them because I feel like I have to. I shouldn't say it like that. I mean, I do enjoy it. It's a release for me. I get something out of it. But like musically, I want something more on our songs. So that's my relationship with singing. I still enjoy it. I got to be more vigilant about staying in shape.
What about lyric writing? What's your process like for that? For writing lyrics, is that something you enjoy at all? Writing
Yeah,
lyrics?
I do. Yeah, I enjoy that. I don't really have a process. Shit just comes to me when it comes to me. This album, the lyrics were kind of all pulled from pretty dark places. The last studio album we did in 2009 was our stab at a quote-unquote concept album.
Okay.
Which was the first time the band has ever done anything like that. All the lyrics have always been very, kind of on the personal level. Interpret them as you may, kind of stuff like that. There was never any real themes that from song to song, album to album. People may say there was, but there wasn't. So I didn't want to do that again. I didn't want to try to do like a concept type album again. And I've just, it's been a rough few years, man. So when it came time to make this record and put the pen to the paper for the lyrics, I just, a lot of stuff was built up in my head and it just came out. I don't really have like a process for writing lyrics though.
Yeah, that's always, to me, one of the more like arcane aspects of writing music is writing lyrics, because it's like, the actual songwriting part, the songs, like the music part,
right,
is very abstract in a lot of ways. It's just sound and rhythm, But when you have to actually pull those abstractions for all your emotions into representations of words and vocal patterns and things like that, that's always been like the scariest part of writing music for me personally too. Because you're like, how do you take these feelings that you have and express them in words, And that process has always been almost like this, like turning lead to gold or something like that. It's like this alchemical kind of thing. It's always been very, very challenging for me to think about that stuff.
Is it more the lyric writing or the phrasing, putting it to music for you? That's
the lyric writing, the actual literal writing of it. The phrasing, I think, has always been something that's like, those patterns kind of just come, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I feel like the words, and that's why I'm always interested to hear about how other people do it.
Another interesting thing too, would working with you a little bit on the record with vocals and stuff like that. And Pete, you guys, there's a piece of music I could present to you guys and you guys would phrase something totally different than I would. And I like that, working with other singers too. That's another part of it, is I kind of want to try to learn from other people how they hear something.
Yeah.
I had an idea I always wanted to do, but everyone fucking hates it. I still want to do it. I don't know, for a cable record, maybe. I don't know. I always wanted to write one song, like whatever, 4.5, 5-minute song, and then give that music to 10 different vocalists without anyone ever hearing the other person's stuff. Have them write their own lyrics, cut their own vocals the way they hear it, and then compile that on an album.
That'd be a cool idea. I like that idea.
And no one likes it. I can't.
Who's these people that don't like that idea?
Dickheads.
I think that's a great idea, man.
So do I, man. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Because I would just love, it's a fun experiment to see how different people approach the song you've written,
Well, who would you ask? Like if say this project were to happen, what give me a list of like, say 5 to 10 vocalists that you would ask? Like off the top of your head, who would you ask to do this? I could probably guess 1 or 2 of them.
Dio, Ozzy.
I'm like, all right, yeah, Dio might be hard since he's dead, but
Well, obviously, I guess I would try to take a stab at one. I would have Pete do one, obviously. I would ask you. I'd probably ask Steve Austin.
That's who I thought you
Today's
would
the
be
day.
on that list. Yeah, definitely Steve.
Because he's so fucking crazy. I'm sure whatever he came up with would be insane. Shit, I don't know, man. I have, there's people that I think are reasonable, and then there's like...
Well, yeah, go across the gamut, man.
One of my favorite vocalists of all time is John Brannon from Negative Approach, Laughing Hyenas. I don't know John Brannon. I've said hi to him a few times, but would he do it out of? See, that's the thing. I don't know who I could get and who I couldn't get, but I would probably compile a list of about 20, and hopefully maybe 8 or 10 would bite.
Yeah. But talk to Christian and see if he'll put this out.
I have.
And what, he didn't like the idea?
He doesn't love the idea. No.
I think it's an interesting idea, man.
I think it's an interesting idea too. I mean, yes, at the end of the day, it's only one piece of music, but it'll be interpreted totally differently by everyone, I think, who hears it.
Well, something like this reminds me of something that AMREP would have done, like back in the 90s, where they would release a series of 7 inches or something with different guys doing the same song, like singing it, and then there would be like a B-side or something like that. You know what I mean?
You're right. That does sound like... Maybe I should call Hazelmeyer.
You should call Tom Hazelmeyer. Maybe interested in doing something
Who the
like
fuck
that.
is this? Well, that's a terrible idea. Goodbye. I've always wanted to do that. There's a million singers I can think that I'd love to ask, whether they would do it or not, I don't know. Jonah Jenkins is another guy I'm a huge fan of. I don't really know Jonah. Once again, we've crossed paths at shows or whatever. Always been a big fan of his vocals. I'd want to try to find people that are different type of vocalists too, not just, I can fucking scream, sort of. So yeah, that's an idea, If I could find someone, if anyone out there wants to give me some money to go make this record, please hit me up.
All right, so the record's coming out. You have a release date?
Yes, July 26th.
Translation Lost?
Translation Lost Records, yes.
Okay, now, do you have any plans to go out there and support this record? Any shows or anything like that? Any concepts for some shows?
There are concepts for shows. Come hell or high water, we will play some shows to support this record in the fall of 2019, of this year. We can't tour, which sucks. We can't play a lot of shows, which sucks. It's just everyone's life and schedules with jobs and kids, and it makes it virtually impossible for us to do almost anything. We can't even rehearse until like September.
Wow.
Yeah. So, we're trying to do a set of new material and old material. Alex needs to learn the old material. We need to rehearse. So I'd say we're shooting for November-ish to go out, do some shows in the Northeast. And we're talking to some other bands. And hopefully we're going to do like a 2 or 3 band package.
Nice.
And do like 4 nights or something like that in the Northeast.
Cool.
Yeah.
Damn, so Alex is like doing it, man.
He's doing it. Alex is the drummer.
Alex is like a drummer's drummer, man, for sure.
He's a workhorse, man.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure recording the record with him and playing. And, Alex also put his 2 cents in with some of the arrangements and stuff like that. Not everything I walked in the door with was the final product. Alex did help a lot with arrangements. He was very involved in the guitars with ideas. He recorded the record, but he also produced the record.
Nice.
And played drums on the record. So, yeah, I was able to con him into just being the drummer, because I was like, dude, we play like 4 shows a year, just be the drummer. So he's in the band photo now, so he's fucked.
Well, that's I'm glad to hear that, because I think that the drummer is the foundation of the band. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Alex, it was just perfect. It was perfect. I couldn't have asked for someone to step in and on short notice and do what he did. He knew what we were trying to do. He was familiar enough with the band. He went in there and he played the song. He wasn't trying to overplay. He was just trying to make the song the best it could be. And we couldn't be happier with him, man.
Do you think that Cable is something that's going to continue on after this? Like, is that your hopes and your plan?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be this is still something that's alive, right?
Yeah, man. I've tried to kill this so many fucking times, dude. I've tried. I've made every opportunity. I've taken every opportunity to kill it, and it just keeps coming back. I feel like it's something I need to do. I want to make another record. I want to play more shows. This year's, we're kind of hamstrung with what we can do, but I'm hoping in 2020 we'll start writing, making a new record, play more shows. I really want to play more shows. within reason. We can't tour. It's never going to happen unless I were to get a bunch of fill-in guys, and I don't really want to do that.
I could see having like one or two guys like fill in, but like you want to keep the core of the band solid. You know, what
I got to keep these guys happy. You know,
yeah,
and everyone's got a problem with everything all the time. People are. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I like to get out west. We've never been a band for 25 years. Never played on the West Coast.
Really? Oh, I didn't.
Never played overseas. Never played Europe.
Oh, wow.
And we played the States and Canada, but we've never been further west than like Texas, the Midwest, Wisconsin, shit like that. Like we've never played on the West Coast. We've had opportunities that just didn't work out for whatever reason. So yes, I would like to keep this going. Everyone else does as well. We've had conversations about this. Hopefully Alex will want to keep doing it, and if not, we'll figure that out as we go. But
awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing actually holding a copy of the record in my hands. I've heard the final masters, and they sound great.
Thank you.
And who did the mastering on it?
Audio Siege, Brad Boatwright.
Okay, cool. I'm familiar with that work.
Yes.
And so yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm glad to have been part of the record.
Happy to have you, man.
Yeah, and thanks, for sharing this with us, Randy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's it for this week's episode of Metal Matters, a Gimme Radio weekly podcast. Tune in next week and see what we have in store for you. The show is available on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, etc. Also, be sure to check out Gimme Radio, streaming on the web, iOS, or Android, for one of the best metal communities, exclusive merch, interviews with artists, and so much more. I'll catch you guys next week. Take care.